What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And my effervescent guest with me today is Esther Avant. Hello, Esther.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Now, you're a busy gal, so we're gonna have some fun here and then set you loose to go fix a bunch of people. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. So I'm going to do everybody, just so you know who we're playing with. I'm going to fire off Esther's bio real quick, and then we'll get started. If that's okay with you?
Sounds great.
Cool biz. Um, Esther Avant spent 20 years in the health industry in a variety of fitness, nutrition, and wellness related roles before branching into broader aspects of personal development. Esther realized that the same tools and strategies that she's been using to help clients reach their health and weight loss goals could be applied to goals of any kind. And now she helps audiences apply that success formula to their career and personal goals as well. Esther is the co founder of Made by Me Coaching, which provides wellness programs and health coaching services to both organizations and individuals. Esther is also the author of To Your Health, a lifestyle of health, happiness, and confidence, and host of the Live Diet Free podcast. As a speaker, she helps audiences level up their lives with a health first approach built on self compassion, personal responsibility, and consistent action. Esther is also a boy mom. I'm a boy dad and Navy wife who has lived and traveled all over the world while writing, speaking, and coaching. Find out more about Esther at www.esteravant.com. So welcome.
Thank
I
you. I
love.
know I wrote that bio, but I like it. I'm impressed.
It's funny. I've had a lot of people go, dude, where'd you get that bio? I'm like, you put it up. I don't know where I got it. You think I made this stuff up? I don't know where I got it. Well, yeah, you gave it to me. Anyway, so welcome, Esther. Now, I am a health and fitness guy. Love it. Been into it all my life. But because this is the What If You Could podcast, I just have one quick question. And basically, it's like, do you have a what if you could moment? Do you have a what if you could to share with the gang? What's your what if you could?
Yeah, I have two that come to mind, and the first was sort of a catalyst for the future. So, writing my book was a what if you could moment, and I have this very distinct memory. We were living in Germany, my husband was stationed there, and I was upstairs in my bedroom, and it was December of, I guess it would have been 2022. And I was thinking about, my goals for the upcoming year and thought about how for years I'd been telling myself someday I want to write a book, but not today because I don't know how and I don't know what I would say. And I'm like, not ready yet. And I just sort of had this epiphany like, you're never going to feel ready. Just like when you became a mom, you didn't feel ready then, you figured it out, right? And I realized that the only difference between me and the authors on my bookshelf, and you've got a great bookshelf behind you, is that they had just done it already. And I'd been putting sort of this pressure on it of like, well, I read a lot of psychology and personal development from Ivy League professors. So there was sort of this belief in my brain that, well, I'm not an Ivy League professor, so what do I have to say that anybody would want to hear? So I started just realizing how much of this I had created in my head. And I was like, probably a lot of these people didn't know what they were doing either, but they decided they were committed to figuring it out. And that was really a turning point for me. And I started reaching out in my network asking for writing coaches and trying to learn more about how do I go from this jumbled mess in my brain to a book you can hold in your hands. And I did it. My book was published in October of this past year. And it was really just such kind of an awakening of what if you can do literally anything that you decide you care about enough? And the most recent example of what that kind of turned into was I ran my first marathon.
Wow.
Also, something that I'd sort of said that's available to other people. I'm not fast. I'm not a good runner. I don't like running. None of these things are really untrue. But also, what if I could just do it? What if I decided I want to do it? And then I just figured out how to do it. And I did. And it really like wasn't as big a deal as I thought it would be. So those are some of my what if I could moments that I feel like have just opened my eyes to you are what's holding yourself back, not any like rules or, anyone else.
It's amazing how much crap we can run around in our head like the drunk monkey throwing poop around and just like keeping us from doing stuff, right? It's like,
Yeah.
what? Why are you keeping me from doing stuff, dude? I want to do stuff.
Yeah.
Two things about that. Yeah, running a marathon is wicked. I've done it. I used to be a big runner. Now I don't run as much as I used to because I'm old. I still love to train, but yeah, it's just kind of bite-sized pieces, right? Like, all right, I got to get 26.2 miles. So how the heck am I going to do that, right? And you just break it down. It's a computer thing. But so writing the book, I Jones on authors, right? I'm a total author groupie. I love authors because I'd love to write a book, but no one would give a shit about what I have to say, so I don't know what to put in it. So when you were writing your book, did it kind of lead you to, oh, I've kind of got a thought for another book now?
Yeah. Which is a little bit annoying because I sort of wanted it to be I have checked the box, I accomplished the big goal, now I can move on to other things. And I even, there were some times the actual writing of the rough draft ended up being not nearly as hard as I was expecting. It's the multiple rounds of editing and turning it from, crap on note cards to a good book. That's hard. And I remember being in the midst of the editing sessions and telling myself, like, you never have to do this again. And it was like no sooner was the manuscript sent off to the publisher that I was like, but I got this other thing. And I was just thinking this morning, I've been trying to be really intentional about the goals I set. And instead of focusing too much on annual goals, I try to think quarterly. So I know what, my intentions and my commitments are for this quarter. I'm thinking maybe like Q3 is when I start writing for the second book. And maybe second and last. I don't know. We'll see what comes up during that process. But the good thing about doing something for the second time is you learn a lot the first time. So you can
Yeah.
skip a lot of the frustration and kind of the newbie mistakes when you're a little bit seasoned.
It's a weird phenomenon though with authors. Almost everyone I talked to said, yeah, while I was writing the first one, all of a sudden the next one came through and I thought, God, this is going to be so hard. And now I got like five in my head and I've got this series going and I'm doing all this shit, right? Because with what you're doing with the training and the fitness and the diet and the podcast and the exercise and the blah, 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 I mean, there's really no end to what you could come up with on books, right? I mean, I remember one of my first books I ever picked up on health and nutrition was called Fit for Life. You're
Hmm.
too young to remember it, but
I
Harvey.
make the Fit for Life pancakes. There's a very
Oh,
good
you
recipe that
do?
I
Yeah,
found online. Yeah.
they're amazing. It's still a great program. I mean, Harvey and Marilyn Diamond put this thing together like in the late 70s or early 80s, right? Fit for Life, the diet and exercise program. And it's basically just a food combining gig, right? It's like how to combine different foods so that they break down properly in your body. I still follow it today. I mean, I still follow aspects of it. So, but from there, shoot, man, they just all of a sudden had like eight books. It's just so
I was just thinking that
that's where you
about
could go. There'll be 10 books coming out of you pretty soon.
it's possible. I was just thinking that about Mel Robbins, that I feel like every time I turn around, she's written some new like blockbuster hit. And I'm like, she just churns them out. Like it's not a shortage of ideas. It's just the willingness to, put in the work.
Yeah. A lot of people, when they find fitness and stuff, it's because they crash and burned. It was like,
Mhm.
some people lived off of, they found themselves at 380 pounds or they got into an accident or something happened that pushed them into fitness. I just interviewed an amazing dude. Love this guy named John Brink. And he's 84 and a fitness champion, and the dude's awesome, right? But he didn't get into it until like in his 60s. So when did this bug hit you to for the health thing?
I love hearing the stories of people who found it later in life. Like, of course, I wish people would find it earlier, but it's just so inspiring that, I talk to women who are 31 years old who were saying, oh, this is aging, it's all downhill from here. So to to interact with people who don't have that lifestyle and who just feel like it's never too late, you're never too old, and to be getting better at something in your 80s is such an awesome thing. I'm very fortunate that I got into working out in high school. I don't remember. I think it was my tennis coach was a personal trainer, and I really admired her. And she probably said something about, working out outside of tennis practice. I started going to the YMCA and doing the Nautilus circuit. And I guess probably it was that I found something that I could do for myself that didn't involve other people that was really appealing to me. I went to a small school, so I was able to play team sports, even though I wasn't particularly good at them. But I didn't like the pressure of feeling like I was letting a team down or having spectators. So being at the gym, it just felt like nobody's watching me. I get to do my own thing. It's easy for me to see if I'm improving because I'm, moving the pin down to the next weight, and that feels good.
Yeah.
And it was all, I wasn't doing free weights. I was very just kind of like a person who doesn't know what they're doing in the gym goes in and is like, this seems like I can read a thing and I can know how to use this machine. So that's what I was doing. And it felt good. It helped me develop confidence as, a 16-year-old. And it led to some interest from boys, which was new. And I liked that. So that kept me going back. And, that kind of spiraled as I started paying more attention to what I was eating for the first time ever. And that's sort of when I got the bug. And then I went to school for exercise science and became a trainer, and it's kind of taken off from there.
Yeah, it's funny. My family owned a drugstore when I was young, and there was the pharmacist was named Harold. This guy, really buff. I mean, super fit. And I was always like, dude, I'm like 8. I'm like, dude, how do you get so buff? And he told me his weight training, diet and exercise and stuff like that. He was like a real Jack LaLanne type of guy, right, of his time. And so when he left, he said, "Hey, I've got these dumbbells. Do you want them?" And I'm like, "Cool." And they're like the spin on kind of dumbbells, just iron and stuff. I still have them. That was like I was like 10. I still have
That's
them.
amazing.
People like look at those, goes, "Dude, how old are those?" I'm like, "They're really old, man. They're really, but they're iron. Nothing's gonna happen to
Right.
them, right?"
Yeah.
I still have them. I still work out with them, and I painted them bright green. But yeah, I got into it real early. I was like, in my yearbook in high school, they wrote a lot of people wrote "You're to the salad guy," because there was like one salad always at the cafeteria, right? And it was not pretty, right?
I'm sure.
But that's what I always ate. I don't know. I just always was kind of drawn to health. So it's great that you started, but at any age, right? I know you talk to people all the time. You inspire them at any age. Like, dude, you're never. Mr. Brink frickin' started at 68. All right, at 84, he is a North American fitness champion.
That's amazing.
Did you never too late, right?
Absolutely. And it's so inspiring to hear stories like that. And I've again seen some social media content from these women in their 60s, 70s that become power lifters, and it's just I think having that kind of attitude is such a game changer. There's so many people who are unhappy and who surround themselves with other unhappy people, and it just becomes kind of this like bitch and moan fest of, yeah, this is just how things are, they're never going to get better, like woe is me. And to invite into your life people who think differently and people who are saying like, what do you mean, it's not too late, you can still learn. I think that's huge. The growth mindset of recognizing my son is 6, and we talk about this all the time because I think it's really important to instill when you're young, if you have the opportunity, that you're unlikely to be good at things right away. Sometimes you'll be a natural and that's great, but most of the time you're new and you're not very good, and that kind of sucks. And the only way to get better is to keep trying. And I think as adults, most of us just shy away from things we don't feel like we're good at because we don't want to be embarrassed. We don't like the feelings of feeling inept. And we just don't have the energy that we are willing to devote to getting better. But I think no matter what it is, pick anything that you don't know how to do or you're not good at and devote a little bit of time to learning because it's not just about that individual skill. It's about developing the mindset that I can. I can learn
Yeah.
new things. I can get better at things. And that just opens your eyes to so much opportunity.
Yeah. And yeah, I'm a total spaz at everything, so I don't get embarrassed very easily. So if I try something, I'm just like, I remember, yeah, just pretty much anything I do, I look like a spaz. It doesn't even matter. So I'm like, whatever. I want to do this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to learn it. But I love that you've encompassed, and I know it's funny. I don't know why people keep them separate, the diet and fitness thing from the life motivation thing. I'm like, why are there two types of things, right? I think Tony Robbins does a lot of molding them together with life force and stuff. But I love that you've incorporated them together. Like, look, why can't I get people not just healthy, but I can get also their shit together at the same time?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's also kind of baffling to me because they seem so obviously intertwined to me. And part of why I think so few people end up being successful with their health and their exercise and nutrition changes is because they're sticking to that surface level. I always call the exercise and nutrition like the part of the iceberg that's above the waterline. That's what you see. That's what people want to know is I can't tell you how many people when they find out what I do say like, "Oh, what are the best workouts for like the bat wings?" or like, "How do I, how many carbs should I eat a day?" and like just all this like largely inconsequential stuff. And yes, of course, overall, your exercise and nutrition choices matter. But what's so much more important is what's beneath the surface, which is the overall lifestyle, the mentality, the once I do know what things I should be doing, why is it hard for me to do them consistently? And that's the key. And that's the work that most people avoid. They're like, no, 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 just tell me the rules, tell me what to do, and I'll do it because I want to be a people pleaser and I don't want to feel like I'm letting anybody down. But the real change comes from kind of diving inside and figuring out like what are like what we were talking about in the beginning, what are the hangups and the beliefs that I've picked up on throughout the course of my life and how are those things holding me back now, and then the awareness that those things can be changed. I can choose different beliefs. I can overcome whatever it is I've sort of boxed myself in with. And it just doesn't make sense for me for people to have those two things so siloed out where even you go here for an exercise class and you go here for your nutrition help and then you have your mental health person here and it's just like you are all one human being and yes there are professionals that can help with each of those individually and also it makes sense to have people who are sort of looking at you comprehensively and figuring out how the different pieces are helping you move forward or holding you back and how you can change those because they're going to benefit you not just in your health but also in your life at large.
Nailed it. We could just stop right there, but we're not. Um, so when are we going to see the Esther Avant health and wellness centers around the country? Is that on your radar? Because really, I mean,
I
like you said, I mean, you go to Planet Fitness and you walk in, and then you work out, then you go next door to the shake, to get your vitamins, and you go next door to do. I think way back there might have been a couple of like World Fitness or some places that had it all, right? But you don't see many.
You don't. I love the idea of it. With our military lifestyle, I don't know that doing anything kind of brick and mortar is in the cards for the foreseeable future. Who knows? But I love the idea. Throughout my career, I've gotten to know a lot of really talented professionals in all of these fields. Registered dietitians and therapists, and I love the idea of whether it's a program or a facility or workshop or I don't know what the format would be, but the idea of bringing people together to help them just live their lives better, period. Level up, skyrocket their careers, thrive in their personal lives, improve their health. I think when you bring the right people together and when you help them see that how you approach one thing is very similar to how you approach the others, it all stops feeling so overwhelming and it feels a lot more like, okay, in what order do I want to do these things? Because I can do them all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to visualize this. The Avant Fitness and Wellness Centers. I mean, franchise, baby, franchise. You don't need brick and mortar. But I mean, think about it. Because when you're done working out, you feel great. You're inspired to eat healthy. Your brain's working, so you're like, let's fill it with really good stuff. So you've got the gym, you've got the the nutrition center, you've got the restaurant, you've got the meditation area, you've got the classes over here. Oh, we're gonna blow this whole thing up.
I
Um,
love it.
I want in on this. Now, do you mostly work with women or do you work with everybody?
Very mostly women. It's just sort of who I've been drawn to throughout my career. When I first started personal training, I was at a commercial gym, and it was like you take who you get. And I had a decent mix of men and women, though statistically there were more women signing up for personal training. And then as I started doing my own thing, I started working pretty much exclusively with women. And now most recently I've partnered with another coach for Made by Me coaching, and we are doing both men and women, and then we have this corporate wellness component where we're working with employees for of small businesses. So we've got both there, but I'd say they both have pros and cons. Something that I do appreciate about the men that I've worked with is they tend to need less like for lack of a better word, massaging, where it's just sort of like a straightforward, you can be a little bit maybe harsher with like, hey, you said you're going to do this and you didn't. And they don't like, there's not as many like feelings involved. And they're just sort of the straightforward, like, yep, here's what I'm going to do. Whereas oftentimes with women, especially with weight loss, there is so much more emotion and history involved. And women are so often their own toughest critics that I think there's a lot more sort of nuance and like soothing involved where yes, I want to get the same point across that you need to be showing up for yourself and you need to be building self-trust and things like that, but it may take a softer tone to make sure that it doesn't end up having the opposite effect.
But you see in that with the gals, they're not even, think it's tough to be a woman right now, because we don't know what they are, and it's really tough to be a dude, because we don't know what they are either. But do you think that do you think that the women aren't they're not being kind enough to themselves? I love how you mentioned about the compassion part. It's like, well, I got to take care of my husband, I got to take care of the kids, and I got to grocery shop. Then I've got a 9 to 5 job, and I've got to do this, and I got to come home and do the laundry, and then I got to take care of the kids again. Then I got to babysit my husband and change his diaper. I mean, do they? Are you finding these women just like I don't have time to take care of myself because I'm taking care of everyone else?
This is such a good question, and this is my second book. The the
Okay.
balance of self-compassion and personal responsibility, because I see those two things on kind of a sliding scale or like a spectrum where you need both. You need to be able to treat yourself with kindness and understanding and compassion that you're an imperfect human and you always will be. And it's okay to, fall short and fail and all those things. And also, I think there is an extent to which too much compassion for yourself leads to inaction and complacency, where you're just always letting yourself off the hook and saying, "Oh, it's okay. Like you'll try, you'll do better next time." And, "Oh, it's okay," and nothing ever changes.
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, you've got personal responsibility, where I do think there is an extreme to that sort of like hardcore, sort of militant, masculine, everything is your, everything is your responsibility. It might not be your fault, and it's just like it has like this intensity to it that I think in certain people can take it too far, and you just end up feeling like, oh my gosh, like everything that has happened so far is my fault. If I'm not happy where I am, it's because of me, and I'm the worst, and I'm a fail, right? And it that can also be counterproductive.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important that we figure out when to turn up the compassion and when to turn up the responsibility. And so that is the premise of the second book, is learning those two skills and learning what it looks like a how to know which one you need at a given time so that you're not being too hard or too easy on yourself, and what it looks like to kind of adjust those quantities based on what's going on in your life. So to answer your question, yes, I do see a lot of women who are, time and energy strapped and just feel like I have this laundry list of things that need to get done and people that need to be taken care of, and I'm at the bottom of that list. um, and you need to realize kind of your role in that. Am I taking on a load of kind of mental work and physical work that I don't need to? Is any of this self-imposed? Am I saying I need to like change my husband's diaper, but like actually he could do that himself. So I think part of it is taking a look at like, am I being a martyr here and I'm telling myself I have to do these things because they make me feel needed when the reality is I could let go of some of those things and take care of myself better. So I think that's important. And then I think, the compassion is important of figuring out, yeah, it's tough. It's tough to balance all of this stuff and to figure out the right mix of things. And there are going to be times that I try and I don't feel good about how it went. And I can learn from that. I don't need to beat myself up, but I can use it to learn and grow. And if we were better adept at those two skills, I think our lives would be a lot better.
Yeah, you knocked that out of the park. It's like when I was doing my coaching, my my real job, I just do this for fun because I love to talk to interesting people like you. But my real job, I'm a real estate broker. My son and I have a real estate company. And when I do coaching with new agents or even, old agents like me, I've been doing it 35 years. I just sit back and listen to what like you just said, and then they'd look at me like, well, and my
Right,
question would
fix
always
it. Yeah.
be, my question would always be, why? But I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to. I'm like, and just go, why? Why do you need to do all that stuff? And that's where the whole premise of what if you could came up. Because I'd ask people all that time when I was in coaching, well, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do this but I can't do this. And I was, well, what if you could? What if you could write that book like you wanted to, get into the gym, get yourself a little bit healthier, spend time with your girlfriends. I mean, what if you could? Why not? And the other thing is, she made me think of, I tell people all the time, Jim Rome says it all the time, put your mask on first. I mean, if you don't take care of yourself, when that plane's going down, the oxygen mask drops. Don't put it on anyone else. Put your mask on first because if you're not around, what difference does it make, right? And so,
Right.
everything you said is just so true, and can't wait to your next book. So when you're working with these people, I mean, what steps do you take to help them? Like, I like what you said. Like, listen, don't worry about the flabby arms, and don't worry about your ass, and don't worry about all this stuff, right? Let's get your mind. Let's exercise your mind first, and then we'll work on the body, right? I mean, is that what you're kind of working with these folks, or?
Yes and no. I think one of the toughest parts of probably working with people and kind of selling anything is that you need to sell people what they want and then you need to give them what they need. So there was a time in my business where, I was so adamant that until you've, worked on the inside, you can't get anything done on the outside. And that was a tough sell. People who are like, I need to lose 75 pounds don't want to hear, well, first let's do some inner work and let's reflect and introspect. And like, then we'll get to that. They're like, no, no, no. If you don't give me the way to get this weight off, then someone else will. So I started realizing that if I really want to help people, which I do, then I need to be able to like I need their trust, I need their buy-in. And once I have that, then I can introduce them to the other things that I know they need. So I wouldn't say there's I'd say step one overall is developing awareness, both of our actions and our habits and our behaviors and our thoughts and our mentality. With behaviors, that can look like a food log or a consistency journal, just something that brings awareness to how much are you moving during the day? How often are you exercising? How much are you eating? Are you getting vegetables? Do you know what protein sources are? Something that brings awareness to what you're currently doing and asking the probing questions and diving into the the inner work of why is it that you feel like this is hard, what feels like the hang up about this. So I think it's sort of that two-pronged approach, and it doesn't need to be a sequential thing. It's not like we have to do A, B, and C for exercise before you can graduate to mental work, and it's not you have to do this mental work before you're allowed to care about what you eat. It's more so like we were talking about, they're so intertwined that you're able to address both kind of as life goes on.
Yeah. I think when you look at dudes nowadays, 38 years old, living with their mom, sitting on the couch, have no testosterone in their body whatsoever, and just say, "Well, I don't want to date because, whatever." And you just get that dude to say, "Listen, only eat 4 bags of potato chips a day and 6 Big Macs and 8 Cokes. Don't do 10, right?" And if I can start getting you to do that, and all of a sudden maybe walk to the mailbox instead of drag your scooter, and then walk to the next mailbox, and the next day walk to another mailbox, right? And then all of a sudden they start feeling a little better about themselves, just those little increments, right? And they go, "Wow, I think that chick checked out my butt, or that guy checked out my butt, right? I feel better. I'm gonna maybe only have 1 Coke today and 1 bag of potato chips, right?" And that incremental sort of physical and mental, working together to kind of start, hey, I maybe I can do this, right? Maybe I can get healthy.
Yeah, I was literally just talking about that on the call I had prior to this, the upward spiral, where it only takes, a few days of making better choices or doing what, most importantly,
Yeah.
doing what you said you would do. Doesn't matter what the thing is. The cornerstone of any change is the self-trust. And it doesn't matter if that is, 8 Big Macs instead of 10 or taking a walk or whatever. It matters that you care enough about what you said to follow through and do it, regardless of how you feel about it in that moment. And it only takes a little bit of developing that self-trust to feel the inner benefits of it. Your body's not looking drastically different, but you feel better about yourself because you're not betraying your own trust all the time. And then once you're feeling a little bit better, you tend to have sort of the a little bit of like rose-colored glasses when you look at yourself. And even though, maybe it hasn't been long enough to see drastic physical changes, you're kind of giving yourself the benefit of doubt. You're like, actually, you know what? Like, I don't, maybe I do see a little bit more muscle. Maybe my belt is a little bit looser. And then because you're feeling like it's working, you're that much more willing to take the next step and do the next thing. And then it's like, that upward spiral takes you all the way.
Yeah, I mean, because let's face it, I mean, let's be honest. People know that when they go to 7-Eleven to pick up lunch and they get a bag of potato chips, a bag of Skittles, and a Coke, and that's their lunch, it's probably not, it's not going to turn out well, right? And you know that intrinsically in your soul, but you're still doing it because you're like, well, screw it. Whatever. And the stuff is so addicting and poisonous, you kind of get hooked on it. But yeah, just those little incremental things should make a difference. So, Tell me, tell me about your Made by Me coaching. What's the deal with Made by? Is that what it is? Made by Me coaching?
Yeah.
What's that deal?
So that's my new venture with my partner Meg. We met at a gym in Hawaii when we were both stationed there. I don't know, 2016-ish. And she was the head coach in my business, and we just kind of decided we like working together. We saw kind of our coaching going in a little bit of a different direction. So we started this new partnership, and we're taking what we've always been doing, individual coaching. We're still doing that. And also, we're branching into corporate wellness and starting to work our network and connections to lead workshops and offer challenges and corporate programs to help inspire the whole workforce to be healthier. So that includes executive wellness, knowing that, there's sort of the trickle down. If the leadership isn't taking their own health seriously, it's very hard for the people underneath them to, right? If that's not a value of the company and of the leadership, then it makes it, damn near impossible for everybody else to. And that once, you have the leadership on board with how much better their productivity is, how much better they're feeling, more energy, et cetera, they're more likely to create a company culture that also supports health of the employees. And not to mention that there are such blatant benefits for a healthy workforce that it's such a win-win-win. So we're trying to learn more about that. We're working with our first company now, and just trying to figure out, what size company do we want to work with and what do the offerings look like and things like that. And then my personal goals are to sort of support that through speaking engagements and leading workshops and, then potentially working with those companies longer term.
I love it. That's freaking awesome. Well, good for you on that. I mean, I was one of those weird guys who had a stand-up desk 35 years ago. I just had to build my own because it didn't make them. So I just took a piece of wood, hammered it to the wall, and I stood there and worked, right? I'm like, I don't
That's
like to sit
amazing.
down. I don't I've done a couple of podcasts standing up, but it doesn't work for the camera, so I don't do
I
it as much.
usually use a walking pad, but I've learned that I can't be on the walking pad when I'm recording because my head's bopping up and down and stuff. But
Doesn't
yeah,
make for a great recording, but
it
yeah.
doesn't, but it does.
But
It feels really good to not be sitting all day. And it's one of those things kind of similar to meditation or any of like this kind of small holistic practices where you don't necessarily notice how bad the sitting is making you feel until you stop doing it all the time and you realize, huh, I feel subtly better. And the only thing that's changed is I'm not in this seated position all the time. So I was without my walking pad for a couple of weeks while we were traveling and was so excited to get back to it. And I'm like, yeah, I feel it feels good to move. And I think there's probably creativity benefits and all sorts of things from just being in an upright position.
Well, yeah, I mean, your endorphins are going and things like that. People look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, dude, you can still have a chair. You don't have to get one of those expensive go up and down desks. Like mine goes up and down. I have never lowered it, but you can if you want to, right? You push a button and it goes down. But you can
Yeah.
get a high chair. You can. You
Yeah.
can sit in a higher chair. So if you start feeling a little fatigued, sit down. You don't have to stand up for 8 freaking hours, but at least stand up more and more, and you'll find yourself liking it more and more. You don't slump when you talk. You're upright. It feels better. As far as a corporate gig, though, I think that's awesome. I love these new Silicon Valley offices where they're all open and dudes are playing ping pong while they're on the phone and they're doing hula hoop and they're doing all this stuff and they get their people moving. I was invited to a huge corporate. This guy's just like a multi crazy billionaire, just bought the Phoenix Suns basketball team. His family started a mortgage business and he's just blown it up and into this company. So he invited a bunch of brokers to Michigan to the company. And this campus is insane. I mean, there's basketball courts in the middle of the office. Everyone's
Wow.
got stand-up desks. There's juice bars. I mean, this guy has got it right. I mean, you go talk to this guy. I mean, he's 100% on board with this. This guy, I mean, literally, I mean, you wouldn't go into his office. He's got a stand-up desk. He's at 4 billion. He's worth $4 billion. He understands that a fit company is a better company. Keeps his healthcare costs down, keeps his people more productive. They're happier, they're more energetic, they're more engaged. So I love what you're doing with the corporate. It's so important right now.
Yeah, and I think, with companies struggling to keep employees, something that more need to be thinking about is, retention stuff. And like you said, when people know that companies like that exist, they like, well, maybe we're not going to get a basketball court, but could we at least, get 30 minutes off so I can go take a walk or something? So I think people always talk about insurance costs and productivity, which are obviously very important. But I think when you look too at the decreased turnover and the increase in retention, that has a huge impact too. And it's from doing relatively small things. Like I have so many clients at various roles in their companies who just feel like I don't even have time to take a lunch because I'm constantly on calls. And such a small thing like working on shifting the company culture so it's normalized to eat lunch if you got a call at noon, things like that would make a huge difference. Or the the ability to take, the 30 to 60 minutes and go do a workout, or kind of have the flexibility. I'm going to come in an hour late today because I'm going to go do a workout, and that sort of thing. Those small shifts I think would make a huge difference in people feeling like they're, people always talk about work-life balance, but like that's a big part of it. Do you feel like your work is monopolizing your life, or do you feel like it's a part of your life that supports the other stuff that helps you, be a human?
Yeah, yeah. And we should be humans. We could try.
Which
There's
we
not a
should be.
lot of us left. Not a lot of humans out there, but there's a couple of them still left. So I know a lot about your second book, and I'm very excited about it. What's the deal with the first book? What's the name of the first book again?
The first book is called To Your Health, A
To Your
Lifestyle
Health.
of Health, Happiness, and Confidence. And it is really kind of the culmination of my last 19 years in the coaching and weight loss industry. I have worked with so many clients at this point that I kind of got the formula down and learned what I call the three C's of success: your consistency, your confidence, your commitment. And
Wait. What
the
were the three C's again?
consistency, commitment, confidence.
Good ones.
And the the way to foster those three things in your life. So the first part of the book is talking about the three C's and why they're so important. The second part of the book is the at the time what I was calling the Gone for Good formula. That was the name of my program. And the components of that are breaking down the overwhelming mass of exercise nutrition information into the big rock habits that are going to give you the most bang for your buck. So stop trying to do everything, do the few things that matter, do them well. You're going to get results. That's part one. Part two is creating the social support that you need around you, where you've got, mentors, you've got peers, you have people who are supporting you and helping you normalize the lifestyle that you want to be living, because the unfortunate reality is the majority of North America is not. So if you're just kind of following the status quo or doing what people around you are doing, you're unlikely to make lasting positive change. So you need to kind of curate the people that you're closest with to ensure that that they're supporting you and your odds of success are better. The third piece is the compassionate ownership that we were talking about. And then the third phase of the book is like the implementation phase, where I am as guilty as anybody of reading, personal development type book and being like, okay, great, and back on the shelf it goes, and on to the next one. So I really wanted to give the reader all of the tools they need, not just to absorb the information, but to use it in their lives. So we talk about goal setting, we talk about the importance of, we call it life admin, but reflecting on your past week, your past quarter, your past year, and making sure that your actions are aligned with the person you want to be. It dives into kind of all of the different roadblocks that I've seen that prevent people from being consistent. And then there's a book portal that you get access to that has bonus resources like a check-in form you can use to check in with yourself each week, workouts, all sorts of things, a progress kind of cheat sheet. So my goal with it is that not only is it helping the reader better understand why they've struggled up to this point, but they're very clear on exactly what they need to do in order to make lasting changes going forward.
Right on. I mean, it's not even a book. It's like a full program. It's kind of a lifestyle guideline. I mean, it's not
Yeah.
really just a book, right? I mean, it's got a whole foundation for getting people healthy.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It really sort of felt like I poured, the last 20 years of my experience into this book, and it sort of shifted how what I've wanted to do for my own work. That's part of why I'm wanting to do more speaking and workshops and kind of the corporate stuff, because I just feel like everything I have to say and everything you need to know is right here in this book. So I don't really have much else to say about it. Read this, do what it says, you'll be successful, at the end.
Well, the challenge is I can't see you being a great speaker because you're so low energy.
You'd be surprised, but I'm introverted, I'm pretty quiet. I have learned to kind of turn up the energy and that piece of my personality, but it's funny to think that people I meet in certain contexts are like, "Oh yeah, you're so, personable and outgoing." And, other people are like, "Who are they talking about?"
Exactly. And people tell that to me all the time. They go, "Oh man, I've seen your podcast and you're doing this and you're that." I go, "No, I'm not. First of all, I'm stupid. I mean, I'm I am not a smart man. First of all, second of all, I don't even leave my house. I mean, I'm afraid of people. So no, they go, "Oh, you're such a people person." Oh, I'm like, "No, I don't like people. They scare me. It's too peoply out there. I don't know. I don't have to stay at home." Um,
Right.
well, what you're doing is super crucial because honestly, I mean, oh, wow, is America in like the most disgusting, pathetic, health crisis, obesity, disgustingness. We're just really in trouble here. We need you out there helping people because, I mean, what do you think? I mean, how are we going to turn around this health epidemic that just is killing people? It's wicked out there.
That's such a good question. And it's something I think a lot about because as, an individual, it can feel like my impact. is so inconsequential, that the problem is so big that what can one person possibly do? Which I know isn't a great, attitude.
That's
But
not a good affirmation.
no, not one you want to repeat. Um, I think to an extent, the availability of GLP-1 medications is a a step in the right direction. That a lot of people who have struggled with their weight for their entire lives are, for the first time, feeling successful, reducing, other problematic health markers. I think there's a lot of benefits to them. I won't get into, people using them for vanity reasons and stuff like that. But what I always come back to is I feel like we have created a pharmaceutical solution to a problem that we also created. And that I think is what's troubling. Is I wouldn't say that they're a band-aid, but I would say it's still surface level. That do we really want to be this population that doesn't try to address the root issue, but just medicates for whatever problems pop up? And again, I am not at all opposed to GLP-1s. I have a lot of clients who are on them and who are being very successful. I think in the right context, they're amazing. I mean, the U.S. obesity rate has declined for the first time in like decades, largely due to GLP-1s. But I think they're sort of masking is it we've just been like, oh, okay, so like here's the solution. We just get everybody on these, and we're good to, it's problem solved. And it's just not. We still have, you know, these hyperpalatable processed snack foods, these hypercaloric environments. We still have huge swaths of the country that are, that you can't walk, that it's very hard to be active. We have people who are not making enough money at a single job and need to work three jobs and are working 20 hours a day. And there's just like the the it's such a beast of a problem, and it's so complex that I guess all you really can do is look at what can I do as an individual. And part of my passion for helping people with their health comes from knowing that one of the main things women say to me as for why they want help is because they're so tired of thinking about their weight. They're so tired of how much energy they're expending on it. And I guess I sort of feel like if I can help someone fix that, that energy is now freed up for whatever kind of gives them life. And if you positively affect enough people, that's going to ripple out. And now all that time you were spending trying to pick a diet is going toward, volunteering in your community, or, just these like kind of grassroots things. So I feel like although I can't personally, take on big snack food, I can help empower other individuals to make the difference that they feel most called to do. And that if you have enough people devoting resources to those things, it's got to add up and sort of move the needle at some point.
What state do you live in?
I'm in California right now
Oh,
for the next few
sorry.
years at least.
Sorry about that. Um, I wish you'd run for governor. You should run for governor of California. God, we're a mess. Anyways, you've been awesome. We're running short on time. We just blew through this hour. You've been amazing. I want to respect your time. There's so many different things we could chat about on this, but I do end my podcast with one last question, if you may. Um, if I may, whatever. I don't know. I don't know how to talk. Um, so I always ask the folks before we sign off, um, if there was one thing that you would like to leave us with that is an important thought, saying some sort of philosophy, there's something that was important to Esther Avant that she wanted to share with our guests as we sign off. What would that one thought be?
I'm glad I was taking notes throughout our conversation because I have the thing. Um, Something that came up when we were talking about habits earlier, and walk in the mailbox and things like that, is just the the reminder that we don't want to do things for people that we don't care about. And so many people are trying to change from a place of self-loathing. I am just going to hate myself into being thin. And then when I am, then I'll love myself. And that is just not how it works. If you think about, the neighbor that you don't like, and they say, will you bring my trash can in while I'm out of town? You're like, screw you. Like, no, I won't. right? Because you don't like that person. So if you don't like yourself, you are going to have a very hard time doing the things that you need to be healthier and to be successful with anything. So if you ask yourself honestly, like, do I like myself? And the answer is no, that's where I would start. Because once you do start to care about yourself, and what that looks like can be starting to show up for yourself. Learning to care about yourself could be choosing the 8 Big Macs instead of the 10, choosing to walk to the mailbox instead of riding your scooter. That can be some of the early steps, but learning to love yourself, to care about yourself is going to make a huge difference, because when you think about your loved ones, when your kids ask something of you, when your best friends, when your spouse, you are happy to do it, even if you don't want to do that thing. Why? Because you love that person. And if you feel that way about yourself, you'll be that much further ahead of actually following through and doing the things.
Yeah, perfect. Nailed it. Way to end that. I mean, it's so true. And for some reason, we're just so weird about loving ourselves. It's so bizarre, like, you know, looking in the mirror and just saying, dude, good job today. I love you. Well done. You knocked out of the park. Typically you stumble out a bunch of crap because that's who you are. But I mean, good job, man. I
Yeah.
love you. Let's go get it tomorrow. I mean, it's so bizarre. We don't care for ourselves. We beat ourselves up. And we all know there's 80,000 negative comments a day in our head. It's bizarre. So that was beautiful. I love that. Compassion, take care of yourself. Hey, kiddo, I love what you're doing, man. I mean, it's just like this is huge. Getting people healthy. Let's turn this country around. Let's get people well. Let's get them off of the food. Let's get them off the drugs. Let's get them off of that stuff. I can't wait to be at your next corporate event. Just don't make me jump up and down like Tony Robbins.
You don't have to worry about that.
Well, you've been awesome. Everybody, just say thank you so much to Esther Avant. Now, Esther, where can I read a little bit and we'll post all your stuff on the podcast, but just real quick, where can we find Esther to get all this great info?
Yeah, I would go straight to the website, esteravant.com. It's got links to all the other things. And my podcast, I actually renamed it a couple months ago. It's now called To Your Health to match the book. So it's all easy to find.
Easy peasy. To your health with Esther Avant. I love it. You're amazing. Let's all get healthy out there, everybody. And thank you for tuning in to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, whatever it is. And then we'll see you guys again soon. Love you guys. See ya. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.